All right, so let's start this practice in a seated pose, Vajrasana. Sit on your heels, knees pointing forward. If you can, take your heels together. If it's too intense, let your heels open slightly. Focus your attention on your breath. And let that be your constant throughout the entire practice, being aware of your breath, moving in and out of your nose from your belly, and three-dimensionally moving through your body, through your torso especially. Feel your weight sit back into your heels a little bit more here so you're not leaning forward into your shins. Soften your shoulders just enough so you can breathe up into the tips of your lungs under your collarbones without any pressure, without any constriction or restriction of the breath. So feel the breath at its most free and open. It's just the biggest, most free and open breath that you can take. And then we'll take some movements just to start to warm up the shoulders. Relax your arms down to the sides. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, release your arms back down. Take your hands in front of you, interlace your fingers, flip your palms out. Inhale, sweep your palms up to the ceiling. This might produce a bigger back bend, so be aware of your back as you take that stretch. Exhale, release your hands back down. And one more here. Hands behind your back. Interlace your fingers. Lift your thumbs away from your sacrum. Try not to jam your elbows into hyperextension. Open your chest. Inhale. Release your arms. Exhale. Then we'll come into tabletop pose so we can set up for downward facing dog. Place your palms at the top of your mat. Take an extra moment or two in table if you feel like you need to get those wrists ready for downward facing dog. When you are ready, lift your knees, press your hips up. Start with some gentle movements just to coax the dog into shape here so you can pedal your knees one at a time. Take time on both sides, bend one knee, bend the other. And that also helps to ease your hamstrings into this stretch. Your arms are strong from the get-go, though. Your arms are pushing forward. And then when you bend your knees, you can feel your arms power up even more. Bending the knees puts a little bit more work into the arms. So take some time here to get the arms and the legs to work equally. And feel balance in this pose. And again, your breath is at the forefront of your thoughts. Settle into stillness just for a moment so you can focus on that breath. And then the breath determines your pace. As you inhale, lift your right leg. You could bend your right knee. You could open your right hip a little bit. You could also lift that left heel up. Something I like to do is bend the left knee, actually. So if you want to give the left knee a nice little bend, left heel can lift. Keep your arms strong, though. And keep your arms pressing forward throughout all this. Squeeze your right knee into your chest now, coming forward into plank with your shoulders over your wrists. Hold here as you breathe, squeezing the front of your right hip, squeezing the back of your right leg. And then on your next inhale, release your right leg back up to the ceiling. Three-leg dog. Wild thing. Turn over to the outside of your left foot or lower your left knee to the floor. Land on your right toes behind your left leg and lift your left hip up to the ceiling. Lift your left ribs up to the ceiling. Push into the heel of your right hand. Stretch your left arm overhead. Your right arm overhead. Don't stretch your left arm overhead. That might not be fun. Come back into plank, knee into chest, and squeeze. And one more big inhale here. Step back, downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your right leg again. Next inhale, sweep it up. Squeeze your right knee to step your right foot forward, high lunge, Ashtha Chandrasana. Keep your left heel lifted. Keep your left knee lifted. Left thigh strong. Bend the right knee over the right ankle and push into your center right heel. Big inhale here, open your chest, stretch your arms using your triceps. And use your exhale then to come back down to the floor with your hands and step right back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take your knees to the floor on your next inhale and keep your toes tucked under. As you exhale, sit back to your heels with your sit bones. Keep your arms really strong and straight here. And then inhale, come forward so you can bend your elbows and roll down into chaturanga. Point your toes back. Inhale, lift for cobra, bhujangasana. Keep those elbows bent, thighs on the floor. Press down into your hands, lift from your back, hips to heels now, point your toes back, child's pose, balasana, exhale, and relax your arms here. So now your elbows can soften down to the floor and give your hands a break, give your wrists a break. Breathe from your belly into your back. Check back in with that breath constantly throughout this practice. This is a slow flow, so we want to really focus on moving just with the pace of our breath. All right, so from tabletop, go ahead and kneel between your hands with your right knee and extend your left leg back. Your right heel is in front of your left hip for Ekapada Raj Kapotasana, stretch. Elbows down on the floor, and then forward fold for just a moment or two here. If you want to add in the twist, you could take your left fingers to the right knee and your right fingers off the edge of your mat so you can gently leverage your right side open in a twist. Maintain the awareness and the energy of your left leg pressing back, stretching back through your left big toe. And then draw your head back in line with the back of your heart so you're not dumping down into your left shoulder or down into your chest or into your ribs. Breath. We want that breath to be able to move free and have that slow flow be the pace that you need it to be. Come back into your forward bend as you exhale. And you can drop your head here. Breathe into the mid upper back area. Okay, take your hands back to the mat so you can step back into downward facing dog. Left foot and right foot next to each other. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your knees, engage your thighs, but soften your low back and lengthen through the low back so it's not rounded. Just a couple of grounding breaths here before moving on to the second side. Lift your left leg when you're ready on your next inhale. And again, here you could open that hip. You could bend the bottom knee, bend the top knee, bend both knees if you'd like. Lift your right heel if you need. All right, squeeze your left knee into your chest. On your next exhale, pull your shoulders over your wrists and squeeze from the front of that left thigh. Squeeze the back of your left leg. You're breathing here, holding this pose, so try not to hold your breath. Follow that pace of the breath. On your next inhale, sweep that left leg up and back, three-leg dog. And then we'll move this into wild thing. Turn to your right arm, your right foot, left toes land behind you. Left arm does stretch overhead this time. Push into your right hand and open your heart up to the ceiling. Keep the right ankle flexed so the right leg is strong. Slow your breath down here if you can. This is a back bend, so it might kind of elevate the heart rate and the breath pace, but just try to control it there. Come back into a left knee squeeze in plank. Left hand back on the floor. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze with that left leg. And then press it back into down dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Big breath here, just grounding those 4 points, hands and feet. Next inhale, sweep your left leg back up. Step your left foot forward, high lunge. Remain on the toes of your right foot so your right heel stays lifted. Right thigh is so strong. The right knee is lifted. Right foot is pushing from all 5 right toes, and then bend your left knee forward and stamp down into the center of your left heel. Slow breath, inhale and exhale, hands to the mat. Back to downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Okay, knees to the floor. Keep those toes tucked under. Sit back to your heels as you exhale. Keep those arms strong and straight. Because from here, we're going to come right back up into table and then move through that chaturanga. Exhale, lower down. Point your toes back. Inhale, bhujangasana. Lift your chest beyond your shoulders. Lift your chin and throat even. Exhale up and back into child's pose, balasana, with your big toes pointing back this time. And your knees can open up a little. Rest your elbows, rest your wrists. Forehead on the floor so you can really just take a moment to connect to a grounding awareness of your breath. Inhale through table, left knee to the center of your hands, and scooch that left foot over in front of your right hip. Now your right leg stretches back and extends, and come down to your elbows for Ekapadarash Kapotasana. This is the prep, so it's just a gentle forward bend. So you could always use blocks under your elbows if elbows to the floor is too intense. But keep stretching back through your right foot. Left toes point back and you're on the top of your left foot. Again, you can add in the extra twist if you enjoyed that on the first side. Your right hand can come over and just gently cup your left knee, and then your left fingers out wide on the floor so you can turn your left ribs open. Feel the back of your head line up with the back of your heart so you can open from the chest as well. And let that twist spiral out completely so it doesn't get jammed in the middle upper back. All right, coming back into the forward fold for just a few more moments. You can drop your chin here in and feel that stretch along the back of your body, and then also the front of your right hip. Again, check back in with that breath to determine the pace so that when you do plant your palms back on the floor, you can slowly tuck your right toes and inhale, take your left leg back to meet the right, downward facing dog. And then exhale, soften into the pose. Feel your shoulder joints soften, feel your back joints soften, the spinal joints. Another big round of breath here. Rooting down to the floor with the hands and feet. From that strong foundation, step or hop forward. Inhale. Exhale, fold Uttanasana. Fold over the front ends of your feet. And feel your back round out. Feel your belly engage to press your back away from your thighs. And then draw your forehead gently in towards your shins. Inhale, press into the center of your heels. Use your back muscles to lift yourself all the way up. Urdhva Hastasana, upward hand pose. Samastitihi, standing pose. Surya Namaskar B is next. Bend your knees, Utkatasana. Inhale, reach your arms, sit down, and then fold as you exhale. Straighten your legs once your fingertips land on the floor. Step back with your left leg and then your right leg. Open your chest. Inhale, then bend your elbows, Chaturanga, with the chest remaining open so that when you point those toes back, you can stretch right into Cobra or Up Dog with your next inhale. Downward Facing Dog with your next exhale. Right foot to the top of your mat, left heel down with the left heel driving back farther behind your toes. Bend your right knee, Warrior One. Exhale, hands to the floor, step back into plank. Take an extra inhale here if that one exhale is not long enough, Chaturanga. And then a big inhale, Up Dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Downward Facing Dog. Left foot to the top of your mat, right heel down, and press it back farther behind your toes. Bend your left knee over your left ankle. Reach up, big inhale. Exhale, hands to the mat. Chaturanga. Again, take that extra inhale if you need. Inhale from Chaturanga to Cobra. Push your chest up, toes back. Exhale, press over your feet, Downward Facing Dog. Press your arms forward. Lift those kneecaps using your thigh muscles. Strong legs, strong arms. Spacious back. Smooth, slow breath. Lengthen out the back of your neck. Lengthen out the spine. Lengthen out the backs of your legs. Use your next inhale to step or hop up and fold over your legs. Exhale, Uttanasana. Bend your knees, Utkatasana, fierce pose. Reach your arms. There's a back bend in this pose. And then press your legs straight to Samastitihi, standing pose. All right, so from standing pose, we're going to come into Malasana, garland pose with your feet together, all 10 toes pointing forward, squat down, and maybe your heels need to lift when you squat down. Open your knees, let your chest melt down inside of your thighs. Your elbows can come down towards the floor. Your heels might even come back down closer to the mat once you start to fold and let those femurs open. What you do with your hands is up to you if you want to keep them on the floor for balance or if you want to reach around and grab your heels. But use your arms, if you're using your arms inside and in front of your shins, to press those knees back in. And then your core to fold your forehead towards the floor. Keep breathing into your back here, so really feel that open space on the back of your body can absorb that breath. With your next inhale, lift up out of your folds, just enough to take your feet together and straighten your legs and forward bend. Exhale, Uttanasana. Take your left foot back, bend your right knee forward over the second toe. Side angle, Uttita Parshva Konasana. So I'm going to show you a few different modifications here. The first one, my arm is inside, right arm inside my right leg. With that though, I can feel my right knee pulling back and I don't like that. So I'm going to take my right hand flat, push the right sit bone down and stretch my left arm out overhead. Then the next option, this is actually my favorite, is the right hand behind your right leg. Another option is the right hand grabbing the front of your right shin. And then here, if that left shoulder mobility is getting in the way of the pose, take the left hand around behind for a half bind and take your right elbow to your right knee or right hand down to your right ankle. So we want to feel this long line of energy from the left heel up through the left shoulder or out through the left fingertips if your left arm is overhead. Place your palms back on the mat and step back into downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your right leg, inhale. Turn to your left hand, outer left foot or left knee, wild thing. Open your heart, big inhale here. Come back into plank pose, chaturanga, exhale. Inhale, upward facing dog, big stretch from toes to chest. Exhale, child's pose, hips to heels. Rest your forehead. Again, this is a great moment to connect. Check back into your breath. Inhale, roll back up into table. Tuck your toes, press back, downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Smooth out that breath here. Smooth out the lines of your body so your breath can flow through those smooth lines. Step or hop forward, inhale. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Squat back down, Malasana, garland pose. Roll down inside those thighs. So knees open up just enough so you can just kind of nestle your ribs down inside your legs. But then again, there's a bit of a squeeze back in with your knees. And you can use your hands around the front of your shins or your arms. And then squeeze with your hands on your heels or squeeze with your hands on the floor. The knees and the arms connect. Forehead to the mat if you can, or in that direction. Opening up those hips, preparing them for side angle. Then take your knees back in together and hands on the floor, forward bend, Uttanasana. Exhale. Right foot comes back this time, left knee bends. And again, you can start with your left hand inside your left leg. Notice if that left knee is falling back behind your ankle, you want that left knee pushing forward. Stretch your right arm overhead and feel that long line of energy from your right heel to your right fingertips. If you want, left hand can come behind your left foot and then really drive that left sit bone down towards the floor. And again, you've got the option to take a half bind with your right arm coming behind to the left thigh, left elbow to your thigh, or hand to your shin, and really open your chest here. Rotate that twist. Again, trying not to pinch the twist off at the upper back heart area. Big breath here, inhale, and then exhale, hands to the floor. Step right back, downward facing dog. So slow flow here is just breaking up the movement so you're not rushing from this pose to that pose. So that downward facing dog is a little buffer for wild thing. Lift your left leg as you inhale and roll over to your wild thing. So you can still connect the poses without missing the pose. Sometimes we go so fast we miss that we were in that pose. From wild thing, back over to plank pose, inhale and exhale, chaturanga. Point those toes back, chest through your shoulders, open your heart, cobra or upward facing dog. Let your knees come to the floor so you can sit back, child's pose, balasana. Breathe from your belly into your ribs here. Nice big breath. See if you can soften anything before coming into the next pose. All right, come up to seated. Now we're going to move into Virasana. So we started in Vajrasana, seated on the heels. Now we're going to sit between the heels. If this is too painful for your knees, you could always sit on a blanket or a block, or revisit Vajrasana with your heels under your sit bones. Again, though, try to pull your weight back into your sit bones so you're not leaning forward into your shins. It'll put way too much pressure on your knees. Soften your shoulders. Soften your face. Check back in with the pace of your breath. With your next inhale, come up into table so you can step your left foot through into Tirang Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana, an oblique one leg facing forward bend. So your left leg is straight, right knee is still in that hero position. Right hip is probably going to lift off the ground and let it. Please don't force it back down. But if it's so awkward that you feel like you can't even forward bend, you're just side falling, take something under your left sit bone, a pillow or a blanket. Stretch out over your left leg with your chest using your core muscles, and try to resist using your hands to pull yourself into the forward bend. So if you need to, get the hands out of the way. Take your elbows on the floor, put a block under your forehead, or put a block under two elbows on the floor. But activate your left leg, press out through your left foot, and then inhale next time you breathe in, come up to seated. Come back up with that left foot so you can come into a kneeling position. So you're just in a nice little kneeling genuflection here. And then lean up over your left foot, tuck your right toes, lift your right knee, transition into Warrior 3, Virabhadrasana 3. Stretch your arms forward if you can. And if that's too much weight at the front end of this pose, take your hands to your heart or your hands to your hips, maybe even your arms out in airplane. Lift with your right glutes and then bend your left knee so you can land back down on your right knee. Inhale, Anjaneyasana. Here, those right glutes are engaged just as they were in Warrior 3, just not as much. With your next exhale, take your hands back down to the floor. Step back with your left knee, toes tuck under. Shift your heart forward towards your fingertips. Keep your toes, knees, hands, chest, and chin on the floor, and keep your hips up. Ashtangasana, 8-limb pose. Feel those triceps working. Elbows squeeze in. And then inhale, push through into cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, take your knees back to the floor so you can roll back over through table. And then we'll situate for the second side, Tirang Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana. Left knee is bent, right leg is out straight. So again, if you feel like you're leaning over to the side way too much, sit on something. Press out through your right foot and fold out over your right leg. Take as long as you need to settle into this. It is best if you take a few breaths to get there. So maybe one breath gets you a little bit out more in a forward bend. The next breath gets you a little deeper into a half of a forward bend. And then the next breath a little deeper. Press back through your left toes and resist using your arms to fold. So using your core. Breathe from your belly into your back. Refocus on that breath again. All right, fire up that right leg. So push out through the right foot. Inhale, use your back muscles to pull up. And then come up into a kneeling position. Left knee, right foot. Tuck your left toes under, lift your left knee, and you're going to gently, not with too much force, not with too much push, but you're going to press from the left foot into the right leg. So your left leg lifts off the floor, again, using those left glutes to lift your left leg. You could stretch your arms forward here, or again, play with the arm variation that helps best with balance. Use your back muscles. This is a back bend. If your arms are overhead, your arms are in, your spine is in extension. So try not to flatten out your low back. It's not going to work. Slowly land back on your left toes and then your left knee. Low lunge, Anjaneyasana. Lift your ribs, lift your belly, lift your heart. And again, your left glutes are still working here. With your right heel nice and firm on that floor, you feel the low lunge. Take the nice stretch into that left hip and a great back bend here. Okay, exhale your hands back to the mat and step back into your kneeling position. Tuck your toes under again here. Move your shoulders forward, move your chest towards your fingers, hips stay up, toes, knees, chest, chin, and hands on the floor. Ashtangasana, 8-limb pose. With your hands and your toes working together, you're going to push yourself through into Cobra, upward facing dog if you prefer. At your inhale, use your next exhale to come back over the knees again. Child's pose, Balasana. Again, just a moment to check in and ground before rushing to the next posture. Slowing down your movements so you can keep your attention from being jumbled and misdirected. Okay, let's come back up into downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Slow breath here. Grounding. Step or hop forward. Slow breath here. Inhale. Exhale. Fold. Grounding through the toes, through the toe box. On your next inhale, reach up. Urdhva Hastasana. Samastitihi. Exhale. Standing pose. All right. Balancing is next. If you need a moment in standing pose to get your balance, please take your time. When you're ready, you're going to bend your knees and cross your right ankle over the top of your left thigh for this number 4 squatting position. We're going to get ready for eagle, okay? So if eagle pose is really challenging because of knee pain and ankle mobility, you stick with this number 4 shape. Wrap your right arm under your left arm, lift your elbows, press your thumbs away from your face, sit down a little bit more towards your left heel with your sit bones, just a little, so you still feel like a push back through your hips. External rotation in that right thigh. If you're going to keep it here, flex that right ankle. If you're going to move into the eagle leg, slide your right leg over and down the outside of your left leg. You might be able to hook your right toes. If it hurts your right knee, don't do it, but please resist that left knee turning in. Keep the right knee pointing towards the left side of the room and the left knee over your second left toe. Lift your elbows, bend your knees more. And then next breath, release your arms. Then release your legs to standing pose. Samastitihi. Ground through your heels. Spread out your toes. Inhale, reach your arms. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward bend. Inhale, step back with your left leg. Lower your left knee down. Anjaneyasana again. Drive down through the center of the right heel. Press your left big toe straight back. Exhale, hands to your mat. Lift your left knee, straighten out both legs. Your left foot might need to step forward a little bit, but not too much because we are going to move into a standing pose next. And you don't want those feet to be too close together. This is just a brief little pyramid stretch. Bend the right knee to come up to stand. Open your arms and then inhale, straighten your right leg. Exhale, Trikonasana, triangle pose. Left hand up to the ceiling, right hand pushes into the foot, right foot, or your right shin. Lengthen the right side of your body so the right underside of this pose isn't crunched. Okay, exhale, bend your right knee, hands to the floor. Slow transition over to that wild thing. So now we're starting to connect pose to pose a little bit more, but it's still slow. Turn back over into plank pose. Inhale. Chaturanga. Exhale. Keep that chest open. Inhale right into cobra or up dog. Chest is already open, so there's less work to do. Exhale. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Downward facing dog. Squeeze your thighs. Lift your kneecaps. Press your arms. And soften your low back. Step or hop forward with your next inhale. Fold, exhale, Uttanasana. Driving down into your heels, use your back muscles, lift your head, reach your arms, Urdhva Hastasana. Samastitihi, standing pose. Before the second side, if you need a moment, please take your time and only move on when you're ready. Bend your knees. Left ankle over the top of your right thigh. Get that number 4 in place. Again, you can stay here with your eagle, but first let's work on the leg balance. So make sure you've got your balance steady before wrapping up the arms. Left elbow under your right elbow when you're ready. And a good alternative to this is to grab opposite shoulders with your hands if this is really too much for your shoulders. You feel the strength in your right leg, and you feel a soft extension in your low back. And if you can start to slide your left leg around the outside of your right leg now, maybe hooking the left toes behind the right calf. It's only possible if the left knee is not in pain. Again, the right knee does not turn in. Keep it in line with the second toe of your right foot. Lift your elbows. Sit at your hips a little bit more. Then release your arms first, hands to heart. And then start to straighten your right leg. The left leg just kind of unravels. Standing next to each other, your 2 feet firm on the mat, heels especially, spread those toes apart. Inhale, reach your arms. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward bend. Right leg's going to step back this time. Lower your right knee down. Set your low lunge up. Drive down into the center of your left heel. Spread your left toes. Point the right big toe straight back. Lift your chest. Lift your heart. Hands to the mat. You can step the right foot forward a little bit. Turn the right heel down and fold out over your left leg. Pyramid stretch. Parsvottanasana. The right heel is farther behind your toes, pressing back. Again, this is a great prep for moving into Trikonasana. So now bend your left knee. Inhale, roll up to stand. Open your arms. Re-straighten your left leg. Equally present to both feet. And then left hand to your left shin. So you can feel your weight move over your left leg. But that doesn't mean your right leg can stop working. So really drive back through that right heel. And press forward with your left toes. So stretch your left toes forward. And stretch your left ribs forward. Big breath, belly, heart, and then exhale, hands down, moving slowly through Wild Thing. Right hand on the mat, slightly in front of your right shoulder. So when you press your hips up with the left toes behind you, you feel your right shoulder move behind your right wrist a little bit. And then again, a slow transition into plank pose. Turn over, open your heart. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, back into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And again, take a moment here to feel the ground in between those 2 feet, 2 hands, those 4 points equally supporting your pose. Big breath. Big space, big feeling here, just of taking up as much space as you can. All right, slowly lower your knees down and exhale, Balasana. Give your shoulders a rest. What I'm doing here is I'm just taking my elbows out to the side and taking my hands kind of together with my forehead resting behind my thumbs. And you can stay here for the next few moments with your forehead connected to the mat and just focusing on your breath, your body, the sense of grounding. Then you could also move on to headstand. And if you're choosing not to move to headstand, just stay where you are and practice breath awareness. If you're moving into headstand, your elbows on the floor under the center of your shoulder heads, your hands cup the back of your head. You push into your elbows and your wrists and start to lift your legs up to the ceiling. You could start with straight legs or bent knees. If you're in headstand, your arms are definitely pushing the floor away from your wrist down to your elbow. Opening up your shoulders. Your head isn't just holding the weight. So the neck muscles are pushing into the floor as well. And that's going to help create a big open upper body. Wherever you are in that child's pose or the headstand, this is a perfect opportunity to make sure that you're really aware of your breath and let each breath bring some attention to your body in either position, headstand or child's pose. Notice where your body is in space and feel it with each inhale and exhale. And if you're in headstand, slowly lower your legs back down towards the floor. Even more awareness of your elbows and your head on the floor. And then once your feet get there, let your knees land down and rest in child's pose, balasana. Just relax your neck here. Let your forehead rest. Let your arms come behind you. And exhale into softness here. Another big inhale here. And exhale. Inhale, roll up to seated. And again, feel your hips over your heels. We're going to move into Marichyasana D. So first thing you could play with is just remaining seated on your left, or rather on your right heel. Your left foot would come to the floor in front of your sit bone, but if you'd like to, you could definitely scooch down inside of your right heel so that you're in a Virasana shape on the right leg. And then your left arm wraps around the front of your left shin. Your right arm comes back for the hook if you're binding. Keep pressing your right toes straight back and keep squeezing, if you can, that left heel into the left sit bone. And if they don't touch, that's fine, but they're getting closer together. And then you're squeezing with your arms. This is a great pose for ankle mobility on the left foot and right foot, knee and hip mobility, and also shoulders. Use your inhale to release the bind and come back up. And then just kind of sweep that right foot under your left thigh so your knees can stagger. And you're sitting on the right hip. Left hip is now off the floor. Twist to your right. Right hand behind you. Left hand on your right thigh. Open your chest. Maybe even look out over the right shoulder. And if you prefer, you can look out over your heart. Sometimes I feel a little bit more of a stretch in the upper back if I look over the left shoulder towards the front end of the mat. So play with where your head is to really enhance the experience here. All right, so go ahead and untwist and take your left leg around the top of your right leg for Gomukhasana. So now that you're facing forward, you could stack up the knees as best as you can and then fold down to your elbows. Use a couple blocks here if you need. Press your sit bones back though. Try not to let your bottom lift off the floor in this forward bend. You can drop your chin in, and if you have an extra block, maybe even let it rest under your head. With your breath moving again with that inhale, lift up nice and slow. Back up to seated. I'm going to play with an arm balance here. You're welcome to skip the arm balance, obviously, as you're at home and I can't see you. You can do whatever you want, right? Just be careful. So I'm going to take this arm balance kneeling on my right knee. Left ankle is crossed over the right thigh. I'm going to hook my right shoulder on the outside of the left knee. And then my left elbow is going to shelve the outer right hip, outer right thigh. Split the legs, Ekapada Kundanyasana A. Look forward, bend your elbows, and shoot back. Chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, up and back. You can take child's pose if you want a moment there. I'm going to move right into that second side, Virasana. So I'm going to sit back between my heels. And I'll take my right foot to the floor for that Marichyasana. So if you want a moment here in Virasana, sit back, or child's pose, rest down on the floor. And then when you're ready, right foot to the floor, sit down inside that left heel or on top of the left heel. So here you can see I'm trying to get my right heel as close to my right sit bone. My right sit bone is nowhere near the floor though. Wrapping around with the right arm, left hand comes behind for the bind. Push into the right foot and squeeze your right knee with your right shoulder. Again, this is a really good pose for the shoulder joints. In this fold, notice the breath, how it's changing the path of it, the sensation of it. The intensity of the breath might be more, might be higher. It might be harder to breathe a slow, full breath. So just notice the space that you can fill up with that breath here. Right, and then again, I'm just going to sweep out of that. Release your bind first. Sweep your legs off to the right so you can stagger your knees and twist to your left. Bharadvajasana. The legs can just land as they land. Your right sit bone just lifts slightly. And then lean over to that left hip so you can open your chest. Recover from that first pose before moving into the next. All right, inhale, untwist. And now my right leg's going to come on top of my left for Gomukhasana. You can scooch your heels away from your hips or closer into your hips to manage the intensity. Fold out over your legs. Ideally, the knees line up, both pointing in the same direction, straight forward. And then you can fold down to your floor or blocks, elbows. Try to keep the sit bones anchoring down though. So it's not a force back, but it is a gentle squeeze of your belly to anchor the hips down to the floor. Feel your belly when you breathe. It might connect more to that top thigh and press into that back a little bit more. On your next inhale, come up to seated. So through the transition, it's really important to notice how the breath moves you. Okay, I'm going to move into that arm balance again. Of course, if you're skipping it, you can always come over to hands and knees and take chaturanga. Left elbow braces the outer right thigh, the distal end. Right elbow can brace your right hip. Mine's not touching, but it can. Do what you need to do. Chaturanga. Do what you can do, right? Inhale, up dog. So we should all look different when we do these poses. You don't need to look like me. Please don't look like me. And then from your chaturanga into locust pose or bow pose. Grab your feet. Press your knees up. So if bow pose is way too intense, straighten your legs out behind you and your arms out behind you for locust. Chin up, chest up, heart up. And here, notice the breath. We're going to be different. Exhale, lower down and rest. Rest your forehead on your forearms. You can let your feet just kind of windshield wiper side to side if you'd like. I just like stillness. I like no movement here. I'm actually going to be here for a few moments. In this pose, I love to practice breathing awareness. This is a little crocodile pose. You got your forehead on your forearms. You got your belly expanding as you breathe. You got your legs as open or as close as they need to be for the hips to be relaxed and the back to be relaxed so that your breath can move into open space. Feel the breath move from your belly up to your chest. Feel these connective points on the floor. And feel the backside of your body open, absorbing that breath. Let the exhale be slightly longer than the inhale, allowing for a complete cycle of breath before the next one begins. Maybe even a slight pause before the next one begins to make sure the previous is finished. Let each breath bring awareness to your body as a whole, or maybe even just specific little parts that your attention is drawn to. And when your attention is drawn to a specific body part, just notice the body part. That's it. If you're going to label it, hip, shoulder, leg, head. And then with your exhale, let go of any tension in those areas. Sinking deeper into the floor. Okay, so I'm going to come up into a seated position. You're welcome to stay here for the next few moments or roll onto your back in a Shavasana shape. I'm just going to come into a seated position, staff pose, and then lotus. So maybe from staff pose, you decide easy seated, or you decide no seated, Shavasana, or maybe child's pose. Or any other position that you want to land in where you can just sit and let that focus of your body, awareness of your body remain intact and then even deepen and create a deeper bond with your body and mind. And it's connected by your breath. And close your eyes down. And let go of any labels or thoughts or expectations from your body or your breath, and just let the two connect as they are naturally designed to connect without your thoughts getting in the way. And please stay as long as you'd like here in your relaxation. But as always, at the end of your practice, when you do decide it's time to finish, when you feel like it's just natural for you to come to an end of the physical yoga practice, take your hands to your heart wherever you are and bow to you. Tell yourself thank you.